Adelaide. I did my 10-minute video on healthcare. Healthcare. Well, I mean, I did it on the video that you sent out for extra credit, and I mostly wanted to discuss the topic of healthcare and how as African Americans cannot get well, technically how African Americans cannot really get trust in the healthcare system, and how like we are mostly looked down upon, and how people still believe the stereotypes of us not feeling pain. And I have found two articles and a video, and I was going to share the video with you, and I hope that I can use the video if that is okay with you. Because I don't want to hear it. I don't want to have that great. But one of my articles was from Harvard Health, published from Harvard Medical School. And in the beginning of the article, it states that it goes off by a quote saying people fail to get along because they fear each other. They fear each other because they don't know each other. They don't know each other because they have not communicated with each other. And that was by Martin Luther King. And then it opens up with a backstory about how it discussed like a patient that recently switched over from their old hospital to Harvard Hospital, to the new one. And it discusses how like the woman, she was an African American woman, and how she went into the emergency room pleading and telling that the doctors that she had pain, and they did not believe her. They were trying to send her home, and she was a middle-aged church woman, you know. She didn't use substance abuse, and they were thinking that she was a drug addict and that she needed these pain medications, but in actuality she was really in pain. So she was saying that she was treated very poorly by the emergency room because she felt as though she was an African American woman. And I feel as though like it was right, because I can share some of my experiences going to the doctor's offices and me telling them my symptoms and what happened, and them like looking at me like, okay, is she lying or is she like being serious? I'm not understanding. So I can understand that. And there's been numerous times where my family went to doctor's offices or emergency rooms. I have a story right here for you. If I can open up with a story, if you would like. When my mom recently just had my brother, he's about to be 17 now, not recently, and my mom did not know that he had asthma, and she was saying that one day that they went to church and my brother was really, really sick. He wasn't feeling well. And they took him to the emergency room, and my mom usually wants us to have black doctors because she trusts them more. But at the time, like, our doctor was out. So she had to go with another doctor who was a white doctor. And my mom was basically saying that, like, he had an attitude with her the whole time, because he was like, how do you not know that your child has asthma? He's a 3-month-old baby. He could have died. He was like, U.S. people should know that if a baby is sick, you need to bring him to the emergency room. And my mom was just like, he's in the emergency room right now. Like, she's like, I didn't know that he had asthma, and you're trying to pin this on me. She's like, sir, like, if you want to have a conversation, we can have a conversation, but don't talk to me about my child. And you know what? And my mom was basically saying like how that experience, like, she just was like, I felt like he only did that because I was black. Like, I was a black mom. And my mom was just like, if it was a white woman, would he have came at her the same way he had came at me? And then he was telling my mom, threatening my mom, that he was going to call child services on her because he felt like the baby was in harm's way. And then she was just like, the baby ain't got no bruises or nothing. She was like, I did not know that he had asthma. He's a newborn baby. I didn't know that he had asthma. I didn't know. That's why he's here. And for me, like, when my mom was telling me that story, I just felt like, I was like, yeah, like, for me, I would have felt very discriminated against. Like, if this was a white woman, would you be giving her the same type of animosity and attitude like you're giving me? Because if you're not, then let's go on. So let's go to the video. The video I found on YouTube, it says the U.S. medical system is still haunted by slavery, which it is. It goes into discuss of black women and how David Brust, I think that's his name, and how how he was saying how he wanted black women to get on not next, it's something with it, and I forgot the name of it, but he was saying that he would give women $100 if they got on, if they got on it, if they got on the birth control for them to stop having kids. And then they also discussed the Mississippi appendix. I don't know how to say the name, but they were also discussing how women would go into surgeries and they would take out their ovaries during surgery. And I was like, that's illegal. They didn't come in there for that. And it's just like, in the video, it also discusses how in the slavery days, black African American women would have procedures done to them. I can't remember the woman's name, but she had 30 procedures done, plus more, by this man. And then they also discussed how he was doing, oh my God, what's that little thing he was doing? Let me take the video out. Oh, I can't remember. But he was, you know how like if a woman's pregnant and she can't push out a baby, so you have to cut open her stomach and get the baby out. I forgot what it's called. But he was doing those on African American women that weren't even pregnant. How is that possible? And then they had diagrams of African Americans who have different facial structures and try to structure them as animals. Like, what kind of society do we live in? And that's why I say sometimes it's kind of not good to go to the hospital because they're not going to give you what you need. And it's just like, even in TV shows, this is even talked about in TV shows. Why is it being talked about in TV shows? I watched one TV show where it discusses how this woman, well, this teenager, she had passed away, but she had came back to life because the hospital was not trying to do proper procedures on her. And she was an African American child. And they were not giving enough CPR to her to make her come back alive. And it was a race thing in the hospital, and they didn't even discuss it. And then the hospital was like, we don't do race over here. We're not racist, but they are. I always say, the doctors, the officers, the people who serve your food, the people who make the food, the people who own companies, can be racist. And I have an article from the Century Foundation. It's called Race, Inequity, and Healthcare for African Americans. And in this article, it basically discusses how, like, healthcare, like, how, like, African Americans, we get jobs, but we don't get paid as much. So for us to receive healthcare, it's still difficult for us. Oh, no. It's still difficult for us. Like right here, it says African Americans will still experience illnesses and infirmity at extreme high rates and have lower expectations than other races and ethnicity groups. They are also one of the most economically disadvantaged demographics in this country. That's very sad. In the report, it sheds healthcare coverages for African Americans and shed lights on important social factors and unequal impacts their healthcare outcome. And it also discussed like insurances and payments and coverage for like certain procedures that you have. So it's like certain doctors can make a bill even way more higher for a black person than a white person. And I find that very inadequate and very cheatful, because why are you cheating another person? Or why are you not believing another person over their health? And I find that very stupid. And it just blows my mind how like people really think like that. Like, it's so many stories. Like one story I saw on Instagram, and man, his wife just had a baby. His wife just had a baby. She had internal bleeding in her abdomen, and he was telling the hospital that his wife was not feeling well. They did not believe him at all. They were like, we're going to get to it. We're going to get to it. We have to take care of your baby. We're going to get to it. No one was listening to him. And he was like, 3 days later, my wife passed away. She from from internal bleeding in her abdominal. And he was saying, because he had a court hearing with the people of the hospital, and he was saying, he was like, they could have easily stitched it up, but you didn't. You weren't trying to listen to me. You weren't trying to listen to my wife. You weren't trying to listen to anything that I was saying. Now my wife has died, and now we're here. And the story was so heartbreaking, Dr. Wade, that it was so heartbreaking. But you could feel the energy in the room when he was talking about his wife and how lovely she was as a person and how this struck his family. And I was like, this just shows, like, even me, I'm like, I'm scared to get pregnant because I don't want to die. Because some white doctor feels as though I shouldn't have kids or feel as though, like, it's not right for me. But with that being said, have a great day, Dr. Wade. Thank you so much for listening to me talk.